I'm Sofia Castillo, 26. Female, I live in a city where dreams are expensive and hard work is the only currency that matters. As a financial analyst, I spend my days navigating spreadsheets and market trends, building a life my parents, a nurse, and a small business owner could be proud of. I thought I had finally made it to a point where I could give back to them in a way that truly mattered, to thank them for everything, but I was wrong. The grand gesture I planned turned into the catalyst that revealed a lifetime of painful truths I had refused to see. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. For as long as I could remember, my mother, Maria, had a framed photo on her bedside table. It wasn't of me or my dad, David. It was a picture torn from a travel magazine of the Sydney Opera House at sunset, its iconic sails glowing against a purple and orange sky. One day, Sophia, she'd say, her voice filled with a wistful sigh, "Your father and I will see that with our own eyes." That one day became my mission. For 2 years, I secretly funneled a portion of every paycheck into a high-yield savings account I labeled Project Rooftop of the World. It was my secret, my motivation through long nights at the office and stressful market dips. I wanted to hand them their dream on a silver platter, no strings attached. As a financial analyst, planning was my forte. This wasn't just a gift, it was a meticulously crafted project. I spent months researching the best flights, securing business class seats as a special surprise. I knew my father, with his bad back from years of running his small hardware store, would appreciate the extra room. I booked a 7-day, all-expenses, paid trip to Australia. It included a stunning hotel with a view of the Sydney Harbour, a private tour of the Opera House, a snorkeling excursion at the Great Barrier Reef, and even a wine tasting tour in the Hunter Valley. Every detail was designed for their comfort and enjoyment. The total cost was just shy of $20,000, a sum that represented countless skipped vacations and disciplined savings on my part. But the thought of their faces made every penny feel like an investment in joy. The day I revealed the gift was their 30th wedding anniversary. I invited them over to my apartment for what they thought was just a quiet dinner. After we ate, I brought out a large, elegantly wrapped box. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a leather travel wallet containing the flight itineraries, hotel confirmations, and a detailed schedule of their dream vacation. My mother's hands trembled as she pulled out the documents. Her eyes welled up, and she looked at the picture of the opera house on the itinerary, then at me. "Sophia, you didn't," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. My father, a man who rarely showed emotion, wrapped me in a tight hug, his shoulders shaking slightly. This is the most incredible thing anyone has ever done for us," he said, his voice cracking. They were ecstatic. For the next few weeks, that's all we talked about. My mom called me every day to ask about the weather in Sydney, what clothes she should pack, and whether she should get a new camera. My dad read books about Australian history. They seemed genuinely, profoundly happy. During one of these calls, my mom casually mentioned my Aunt Isabella. "You know, your Aunt Izzy has always wanted to travel, too," she said. "She's had such a hard life, poor thing." I thought nothing of it. Aunt Isabella, my mother's older sister, was a constant presence in our lives, mostly as a topic of concerned conversation. At 55, she had been unemployed for years, living off a small inheritance that was quickly running out and relying on the generosity of family. She was perpetually down on her luck, a storm cloud of complaints and unmet expectations. My parents, especially my mom, felt a deep sense of obligation to her. They'd often give her money or have her over for dinner for weeks at a time. I felt sympathy for her, of course, but I also felt a sense of frustration at her unwillingness to improve her own situation. Still, this was my parents' moment, and I didn't let the mention of her dampen the mood. The gift was for them, a celebration of their love and a thank you for their sacrifices. Nothing could possibly ruin that. About 3 weeks before the departure date, a subtle shift occurred. My parents' excited calls became less frequent. When I brought up the trip, asking if they'd started packing or if they needed me to help with their visa applications, their answers became vague. "Oh, we'll get to it, sweetie. Still plenty of time," my mom would say, quickly changing the subject. My dad, who was usually so straightforward, would just mumble something about being busy at the store. A knot of unease began to form in my stomach. I tried to dismiss it as pre-travel jitters on their part. After all, they hadn't taken a real vacation in over a decade. I decided to give them some space, assuming they were just overwhelmed. I sent them a link to a travel blog about Sydney, hoping to reignite their excitement. The message was seen, but I received no reply. A few days later, I called my mom to finalize some details about the airport transfer I was arranging. "Oh, Sophia, don't worry about that. We have it covered," she said, her voice sounding strained and distant. "We've got a ride. Everything is handled." Her tone was dismissive, almost secretive. It was so unlike her. The warm, collaborative spirit of our planning had evaporated, replaced by a strange and unnerving wall of silence. I confided in my best friend, Liam, over coffee. "Maybe they're just nervous flyers," he suggested, trying to be optimistic. "Or maybe they're planning a surprise for you when they get back." I wanted to believe him, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Something felt deeply wrong. The day of their departure arrived. I had offered to drive them to the airport, a suggestion they had politely but firmly declined, repeating that they had a ride sorted. I was hurt, but I didn't want to cause a scene. I decided to surprise them at their gate with a care package for the flight, neck pillows, noise, canceling headphones, and their favorite snacks. I wanted to see them off, to get one last hug before they embarked on their dream journey. I texted them that morning, "So excited for you both. Have the most amazing time. Love you." The reply hours later was a simple, "Thanks, honey. Love you too." No exclamation points, no excitement, just a flat, perfunctory response. I arrived at the international terminal about 2 hours before their flight was scheduled to take off. I checked the departures board and headed towards the assigned gate. As I rounded the corner, my eyes scanned the crowded waiting area, searching for my parents. And then I saw them. They were standing near the window, laughing and talking, but they weren't alone. Standing with them, holding a passport and a boarding pass, was my Aunt Isabella. She was beaming, dressed in new travel clothes. My mother had her arm linked through Isabella's, and my father was pointing something out on the tarmac to them, a wide smile on his face. For a moment, my brain couldn't process the scene. It was like watching a movie with the wrong actors cast in the lead roles. I stood there, frozen, the care package in my hands feeling impossibly heavy. They hadn't seen me. I watched as the three of them, my mother, my father, and my aunt, lined up to board the plane. They handed their tickets to the gate agent, walked down the jet bridge, and disappeared from view. They were going to Australia, and they had taken my aunt instead of me. No, that wasn't right. It was worse. They hadn't taken her instead of me. I was never invited. They had taken her in the place that was rightfully theirs, on a trip funded by my love, my sacrifice, and my hard work. I stumbled back from the gate, my heart pounding a sick, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I found a secluded corner of the terminal and sank into a chair, my mind reeling. The care package I had so carefully assembled fell to the floor, spilling its contents. I stared at my phone, at the picture of the three of them I had reflexively snapped before hiding. It was real. It was all real. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. My first instinct was denial. There had to be an explanation. A mistake. Maybe I had bought 3 tickets by accident. No, that was impossible. I'm a financial analyst. I check every detail. My hands shaking, I dialed my mother's number. It went straight to voicemail. "The subscriber you have dialed is currently unavailable." Of course. The plane was probably taxiing on the runway. I called my dad. Same result. I sat there for what felt like an hour, replaying the scene in my head. The laughter, the smiles, the complete and utter lack of guilt on their faces. They looked happy, relieved even, as if the burden of a 30-year dream had finally been lifted, just not in the way I had intended. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through my tear-filled eyes. I felt a profound sense of humiliation and foolishness. How could I have been so blind? I got into my apartment and immediately called Liam. I could barely get the words out between sobs, but he listened patiently. "Soph, that's not just wrong, that's monstrous," he said, his voice laced with anger on my behalf. "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. All I had was a gaping wound where my trust in my parents used to be. 24 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom on a group chat app. It wasn't a private message to me, but a picture sent to the entire extended family. It was a photo of her, my dad, and Aunt Isabella, posing in front of the Sydney Opera House. The same view from the magazine photo she'd cherished for decades. The caption read, "Finally made it. It's everything we dreamed of and more. So grateful for this opportunity to make memories with family." My blood ran cold. The audacity was staggering. She didn't even have the decency to tell me herself. She was flaunting their betrayal to everyone we knew. That's when the rage hit, a cold, clear anger that burned away the tears and confusion. I picked up the phone and called her. This time she answered, her voice bubbly and cheerful. "Sophia, hi, honey, isn't it just beautiful here?" she chirped. "Why is Aunt Isabella with you?" I asked, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. The line went silent for a moment. "Oh," she said, her tone instantly shifting from cheerful to defensive. "Well, we were going to tell you. It all happened so fast." "Tell me what, Mom? That you gave my gift, the gift I worked for years to give you, to someone else. That you took her on my business class flight and are staying in the hotel I paid for. Sophia, you have to understand." She started, her voice taking on the martyred tone she always used when she was trying to win an argument. "Your aunt has been so depressed. She's had such a hard life. She really, really needed this. It was an act of charity, sweetie, charity," I repeated, my voice rising. "It's charity to steal from your own daughter. That was your anniversary gift. It was for you and Dad. And we're here, we're grateful," she insisted. "But family helps family. You're young, you're successful. You can go to Australia anytime you want. This was Isabella's only chance. We couldn't deny her that. It would have been cruel. So you chose to be cruel to me instead," I shot back. "You lied to me. You deceived me. You couldn't even look me in the eye and tell me what you were doing." "My dad got on the phone then. Sophia, your mother is right," he said, his voice firm. "We made a difficult decision for the good of the family. Isabella is our blood. We have to take care of her. We assumed you would understand. You assumed." I laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "You assumed I'd be okay with you stealing a $20,000 gift and giving it to the family freeloader. Did you also assume I'd be okay with finding out via a family group chat? The conversation devolved from there. They accused me of being selfish, materialistic, and ungrateful for not sharing my blessings. They twisted the narrative until I was the villain, and they were the benevolent parents making a tough but noble sacrifice. By the time I hung up, I was shaking with fury. They weren't just thoughtless, they were manipulative and deeply entitled. They believed they had a right to my money and a right to reallocate my generosity as they saw fit. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let this go. After the phone call, I fell into a sort of numb shock. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a deep, aching sadness. Liam came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. He didn't offer platitudes or easy solutions. He just sat with me while I stared at the wall, letting me process the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. "It's not just the trip, is it?" he asked gently after a long silence. I shook my head, a single tear tracing a path down my cheek. "No," I whispered, "it's everything. That night I couldn't sleep." My parents' words echoed in my head. Family helps family. We assumed you would understand. It was as if a veil had been lifted and I was seeing my entire life through a new, brutally honest lens. I started to connect the dots, tracing the pattern of this behavior back through the years. It was a painful exercise in emotional archaeology, digging up memories I had long since buried or explained away. I remembered my 16th birthday. I'd wanted a small party with friends. Instead, my parents insisted we have a big family dinner because Aunt Isabella was feeling lonely and needed cheering up. The entire evening revolved around her complaints and dramas. I remembered my college graduation. My parents gave Isabella the 2 extra tickets I had for my friends because she'd never seen a university graduation before, and it would be a good experience for her. My friends had to wait outside. I remembered the down payment I was saving for my first car. My dad had borrowed a significant portion of it to help Isabella pay off a credit card debt, promising to pay me back. He never did. Each memory was a small cut, a minor injustice I had brushed aside for the sake of peace, for the sake of being the good daughter. I had always been the reliable one, the responsible Sophia. I was the one who worked hard, who never asked for anything, who was expected to understand and accommodate. Meanwhile, Aunt Isabella was the perpetual victim, the black hole of need that sucked up all the family's resources, sympathy, and attention. And my parents were her willing enablers. They weren't just helping her, they were sacrificing my happiness and well-being for hers, over and over again. Fueled by a new, grim determination, I went to my laptop. I wasn't a detective, but I was a financial analyst. My skill was in finding patterns in data, and my own life had just become a data set. I started digging through old emails and bank statements. I found the email thread from 5 years ago where I'd meticulously outlined a budget and a job, search plan for Aunt Isabella, an offer of help she had completely ignored. I found the bank transfer records of the thousands of dollars I had loaned my parents over the years, money I now realized was likely funneled directly to her. I even found a charged-off credit card account that I had signed for my dad when his business was struggling. A card that had a suspicious number of cash advances. A card that had a suspicious number of cash advances taken out in a city where Isabella lived at the time. The trip to Australia wasn't an anomaly. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being treated not as a daughter to be cherished, but as a resource to be exploited. My success wasn't a source of pride for them. It was a deeper well from which they could draw to quench Isabella's endless thirst. My generosity wasn't seen as a gift. It was treated as an obligation. The love I thought we shared felt conditional, transactional. As long as I was providing, I was valued. The moment I had an expectation of my own, that a gift I gave would be honored, I was selfish and cruel. The sadness I felt began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They had miscalculated. They had assumed I would understand, that I would eventually swallow my hurt and forgive them, just as I always had. But they had pushed their golden goose too far. The analyst in me took over, and my grief turned into a Project Payback, and it was going to be executed with the same meticulous detail I had put into planning their dream vacation. The first step in any sound financial plan is to cut your losses and reallocate your assets. My parents and aunt had become a bad investment, a drain on my emotional and financial resources. It was time to divest. My anger wasn't hot and explosive. It was cold and efficient, like the logic of a spreadsheet. I was going to dismantle the vacation they were enjoying, piece by piece, from my apartment thousands of miles away. Phase 1 began with a call to the travel agency. I explained the situation calmly and professionally. "Hello, my name is Sofia Castillo. I'm calling regarding booking number 74B391. I am the cardholder who paid for this trip in full." The agent was sympathetic, especially after I explained that the trip was a gift that had been misappropriated. The business class return flights were the first to go. I asked the agent to cancel the return leg of their journey. "Are you sure, ma'am? The cancellation fee is quite high, and the tickets are non-refundable," she warned. "I am absolutely sure." I said, "Please process the cancellation. Whatever partial credit is available, please hold it on my account." Suddenly, their seamless journey home vanished. They would discover this only when they tried to check in for their flight back. Next on the list was the 5-star hotel at Sydney Harbor. I had booked a suite for them for the entire week. I called the hotel's international reservation line. Posing as a personal assistant, I explained that there had been a change of plans and my clients needed to check out 3 days early. While the first few nights were non-refundable, I was able to get a significant refund for the latter half of their stay. I pictured them returning from a day of sightseeing to find their key cards declined, their luggage held at the concierge pending payment for the remainder of their stay, at a much higher last-minute rate. The prepaid excursions were the most satisfying to cancel. The private tour of the Opera House, the Great Barrier Reef snorkeling trip, the Hunter Valley wine tour. One by one, I called the tour operators. I explained that due to a family emergency, my parents had to cut their trip short. Most were understanding and offered partial refunds or credits. Each cancellation felt like a small victory, a reclaiming of my stolen generosity. Their dream vacation was now crumbling around them, leaving them with nothing but expensive flights there and a hotel room for a few nights. The rest of their time would be spent on their own dime. Knowing Aunt Isabella and my parents' spending habits, their own dimes were few and far between. Phase 2 was about severing the financial ties that bound us. For years, I had been informally advising my dad on the finances for his hardware store. I helped him optimize his inventory, managed his tax preparations, and even built him a simple accounting system that saved him thousands annually in professional fees. That evening, I drafted a polite but firm email. "Dear Dad," it began. Effective immediately, I will no longer be able to provide financial consulting or accounting services for the business. My professional workload has become too demanding to continue this pro bono arrangement. I have attached all the relevant files and login credentials for your records. I recommend you hire a professional accountant to handle your books moving forward. I wish you the best of luck with the business. I attached a list of reputable local accounting firms as a final professional flourish. I knew that hiring someone would cost him a significant amount of money he likely didn't have budgeted. Phase 3 was the public relations component. My mother had used the family group chat to broadcast her betrayal. I would use it to broadcast the truth. But not with anger or accusations. I would use facts. I waited until I knew they were in the air, somewhere over the Pacific with no internet access. Then I sent a message to the group chat that included all our aunts, uncles, and cousins. "Hello, everyone," I wrote. "I know many of you have seen the beautiful pictures of my parents and Aunt Isabella's trip to Australia. I just wanted to clear up any confusion. I am so glad that the 30th anniversary gift I bought for my parents could be enjoyed. For 2 years, I saved up to give them this trip of a lifetime. Here is a copy of the original itinerary I planned for them. I attached the PDF of the luxurious, all-inclusive package. When my parents decided to give my gift to Aunt Isabella and take her instead, they didn't inform me. While I find their decision deeply hurtful, I hope the 3 of them had a wonderful time with the parts of the trip that remained after I was forced to cancel the return flights, the hotel, and the tours I had paid for. I am sharing this only because I believe in honesty, and I did not want anyone to be under the false impression that I funded a trip for 3. My gift was for 2, and it was stolen. I hope you can all understand why I will be taking a step back from certain family obligations from now on." I hit send. The response was immediate. My phone exploded with messages from shocked relatives. The narrative my parents had carefully controlled had just been shattered by a single, undeniable truth. There would be no hiding, no twisting the story. The trap was set. All I had to do now was wait for them to come home. The week they were away was strangely peaceful. I muted the family group chat after my message, letting the firestorm rage without my involvement. Liam checked in on me, and we spent the weekend hiking, getting my mind off the inevitable confrontation to come. For the first time, I felt a sense of control, a feeling of lightness that came from severing a toxic tie. I was no longer waiting for an apology I knew would never come. I was simply waiting for the consequences of their actions to arrive on their doorstep, and then, eventually, on mine. They were supposed to be back on a Tuesday evening. My phone remained silent. Wednesday passed. Nothing. On Thursday afternoon, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was my father. His voice was a mixture of exhaustion and fury. "Sophia, what did you do?" he demanded, without even a hello. "I did what I had to do, Dad. I protected my assets." I replied, my voice steady. "We were stranded. We had to buy 3 last-minute one-way tickets from Sydney. Do you know how much that cost? We had to borrow money from your uncle, and the hotel kicked us out. We had to find some awful motel on the outskirts of the city. You ruined everything." "No, Dad." I corrected him calmly. "You ruined everything when you decided to lie to me and steal from me. I simply stopped payment on the services you were no longer entitled to. It's a simple financial principle." He was sputtering, unable to form a coherent sentence. "Your aunt is devastated. You humiliated us in front of the whole family. Your mother hasn't stopped crying." "Good," I said, the single word hanging in the air between us. "Maybe now she understands what it feels like to be publicly humiliated. I'll be waiting for you at my apartment. We need to talk." I hung up before he could respond. 2 hours later, they were at my door. My mother, my father, and Aunt Isabella. They looked haggard, jet-lagged, and furious. I led them into my living room, but remained standing, forcing them to look up at me. It was a small power play, but it felt significant. Isabella spoke first, her voice dripping with venom. "You are a selfish, cruel little girl," she spat. "After everything I've been through, I deserved that vacation. Your parents knew that. They were being good people, and you punished them for it." I looked at her, truly looked at her, without pity for the first time in my life. I saw a bitter, entitled woman who had built a life on the charity of others. "You have never deserved anything from me, Isabella," I said evenly. "Every dollar I earn is through my own hard work. The fact that you believe you are entitled to the fruits of my labor is the core of this entire problem." My mother started to cry then, the performative tears I had seen so many times. "Sophia, how could you do this to your family? We raised you better than this. We love you, do you?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Do you love me, or do you love the security my bank account provides? Because love doesn't lie. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't take a gift meant to celebrate 30 years of marriage and give it to your sister without a word. Love doesn't make your daughter feel like an ATM." I walked over to my desk and picked up a folder. I had printed everything out, the bank statements showing the loans, the email chains, the original trip itinerary, and the receipts showing the total cost. I laid them out on the coffee table. "This isn't about one trip," I said, my voice gaining strength. This is about a pattern, a lifetime of you putting my needs last, a lifetime of me being the responsible one, the one who is expected to sacrifice so that Isabella can be comfortable. You didn't just give away a vacation, you gave away my trust, you gave away my respect, and I am finally done letting you take things from me. And my father looked at the papers, his face pale. For the first time, he seemed to have no defense. He knew it was all true. So what now? And my mother sobbed, "You're just going to cut us out of your life." And no, I said, and their faces filled with a flicker of hope. It's much simpler than that. From now on, our relationship will be one of honesty. I will be honest about my boundaries, and you will be honest with your finances. All outstanding loans are to be repaid. I have drafted a payment schedule for you. I slid another piece of paper across the table. I will no longer be providing any form of financial support to any of you. Our relationship, if it is to continue, will be based on mutual respect, not on my wallet. The Bank of Sofia is closed, permanently. They stared at me, dumbfounded. This was not the outcome they had expected. They had come for a fight, for tears, for a dramatic reconciliation where I would eventually back down. They were not prepared for a balance sheet and a repayment plan. They were not prepared for me to treat this like a business deal gone bad, and that's exactly what it was. They left my apartment that day in stunned silence. There was no apology, but there was also no argument. They took the repayment plan. Aunt Isabella shot me a look of pure hatred before she walked out the door, but I felt nothing. She no longer had any power over me. The weeks that followed were quiet. The family chat had fractured into different camps, but most of my cousins and younger relatives reached out to me privately, expressing their support and sharing their own stories of my aunt's manipulations. It turned out I wasn't the only one who had been funding her lifestyle under the guise of helping family. My parents started making small, monthly payments. They were stiff and formal, sent via bank transfer with no message attached. Our communication was reduced to polite, infrequent texts about the weather. The warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, respectful distance. It was painful, like mourning a relationship that I was only now realizing had never truly existed in the way I'd imagined. But underneath the pain, there was a profound sense of relief. I was free. A few months later, I received the final travel credit from the cancelled Australia trip. It was a substantial amount. I looked at the credit notification in my email, and an idea sparked. I called Liam. "Hey," I said, a smile in my voice for the first time in a long time. "How do you feel about koalas and ridiculously good coffee?" 2 months after that, Liam and I were standing in front of the Sydney Opera House. The sun was setting, casting a brilliant orange and purple glow across the harbor. It was even more beautiful than the picture my mom had kept by her bed. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the salty air, and I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This trip wasn't about replacing a bad memory. It was about creating a new one that was entirely my own. I had learned a hard lesson in conditional love and the importance of self-worth. I had lost the family I thought I had, but I had gained something far more valuable in return, myself. And as I stood there, watching the lights of the city begin to twinkle, I knew this was a much better dream come true.